tell me, what is the process? Like, what is branding to you? And when somebody is trying to think about branding, what are some of the things that they should be thinking about in their business?
Yeah, so that's a loaded question. What is branding to me? Honestly, your brand is the interpretation of others, in my opinion, like what others see and feel when they interact with your business or with yourself. Because I think as solopreneurs, we have a personal brand that we carry, right? So we're not just focused on our business brand. There's also this personal brand element. But yeah, it's the way that they interact. It's the way that they feel when they encounter your work. And branding is not just design, right? Like it's photography, it's copy, it's all the things that make up a brand. So on the design side, in terms of process, one thing that we do that I find to be really helpful for not just our studio, but also our clients, we have a really intense discovery phase is what I call it. So when a client onboards with me, the first thing I'll do is send them a brand discovery questionnaire that is far and above your typical branding questionnaire, in my opinion. And that's because we get a little bit deeper with the sort of strategy that we apply. So for instance, I know everyone thinks about their ideal client or customer that they want to serve. That's a big sort of buzzword in the branding world. But when you're talking about your client at a surface level, so for instance, where do they like to shop, right? Like that gives me a little bit of info on them, but not really. It doesn't tell me what motivates them, what drives them. So we would kind of reframe that question to be something along the lines of, what brands do they wish they could wear? Because you may be walking around wearing Target products, which is great. We all love Target, right? But you may wish that you're dripping in Chanel. And so that tells me a lot more about who you are and what you're drawn to and what sort of brands you admire than something more surface level like the previous question. So our questionnaire is really in depth. It's very lengthy. It talks about brand goals, business goals, all of that. At the same time, I also get clients on a collaborative Pinterest board, and that's kind of where the visual inspiration comes about. I can see a lot about what they're inspired by, and then I go in and add what I think their clients are inspired by to kind of marry those two things. Because the other thing is, myself as a business agency or branding agency focused on other small, creative online businesses, my approach to branding is a lot different than the agency that, Pepsi uses, for instance, right? They're thinking at a different level because they have a mass audience. Whereas when I'm working with small business owners, I have to consider who that person is too, right? So, if we're working on your brand, I want to know what you love, what you hate. I don't want you to have a brand that's covered in orange if that's your least favorite color, So I really believe that branding is this full package of your likes, your dislikes, your ideal client, what they're drawn to, and your overall interpretation and presentation in the market. Hopefully that answers it. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but
no, that was it's perfect. So if there is somebody that is out there looking to rebrand or looking to really just figure out if this is the right step, what would be some like quick, easy tips that you could give them when they're kind of evaluating their own business and brand?
For sure. I think doing a business audit is so important before you reach out to a designer, because sometimes you're honestly not ready for one, and that's okay. But as far as knowing when you might be, typically some items to look at are your business model. Has it changed since you last established your brand? So number one, if you started out selling, pink tutus and now you sell, I don't know, something totally different, plants, whatever, looking around my office clearly, then, you obviously will need a brand to reflect that new offering or that new customer base. So that's the first thing. The second thing is your brand covered in trends, right? So if your brand is dripping in, watercolor, calligraphy, all these things that are beautiful in their own right, but they are trendy at times, that may be a sign that you might need to rebrand or step into something more timeless. If you are a trend forward brand, maybe looking at current trends as opposed to previous trends is important. And then the last thing is looking at your brand suite as a whole. So a lot of times people enter a rebrand because they don't have enough assets, right? Like they have one logo and a color palette that's just not functioning well for them. So again, a part of our process, we never design just a logo. You get a full branding suite, which includes multiple logos, a full color palette, typography, all the things, so that you're walking away with a robust brand asset and portfolio. Especially when it comes to colors, I found that people will just arbitrarily choose colors that they really like, and they find that those colors aren't functional together. So they're trying to create graphics and they're like, wait a minute, this red and green does not look good together, So that's part of our process too, is making sure that you have a functional palette that's going to serve you well when you're making things on your own. So I really believe in equipping our clients and, any designer that you work with. I think it's important that they equip you to use the materials that they've created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. So what were some of the legal challenges that you had?
Oh my gosh, I've had quite a few, honestly, and you've been around to help me with some of them. So the first one that I encountered, I think was in 2019. I actually went on Pinterest and saw someone was selling my designs on Etsy. I don't know if you remember this, but I went to Etsy. It was some person overseas that had quite literally taken a design that I made and started selling it themselves, changed the colors, but it was the strangest thing. I just popped on and I was like, that looks really familiar. It's just a different color. So that was my first like real legal hurdle. I think we ended up sending them a message, a cease and desist, just to say, hey, you don't own these, you can't sell them. They didn't respond, but they took the listing down. But that was scary. That was like my first encounter, was realizing, okay, my work is public. People see it on social media. They see it on my website. They can easily take it. And with the internet, it's hard to track that down, right? Mm-hmm. So to be honest with you, that's a huge fear I have, just kind of walking around every day, is that one of my sweet clients who paid for this custom brand is going to get on Pinterest and see that it's for sale. So, I mean, who knows what could happen? It's really terrifying. And unfortunately, I don't know that there's too much that you can do with the internet like that. So,
well, that's a huge fear, because a lot of times when people are coming to brand themselves, they're doing custom design so they can own it. They can go in and trademark it if they want. And there's not a copy of somebody else's things or similar to somebody else's things. So you're right. That can be a poor reflection. But at the same time, if, you do see people, I mean, it's very common actually. It's usually happening with people who are not in America. So they're sitting in a different country and they're like, oh, this is a great picture. Let's just change the colors around and slap it on our thing, because they can recreate it, because that's what they do. And now they're infringing on your copyright and your trademark. And so I think what you did is great. You sent the cease and desist letter and they took it down. But if they don't take it down, Etsy, Pinterest, all these platforms have a DMCA takedown process. And, go into their system, go into how to do that process and follow it. You don't even have to consult an attorney necessarily, because they already have those forms written out for you.
Something similar actually happened about a year ago as well. There were two other designers involved, but another designer in Houston and I realized that someone was stealing our Instagram captions, which was interesting. So the education-based Instagram captions, regarding how to choose your colors, all of those things, someone was literally taking them word for word and promoting them on her own Instagram account. We didn't send a formal cease and desist in that instance, but we screenshot everything, sent her an email and said, hey, we noticed this. You can see clearly where we wrote this and then you wrote this. So even something like that, I felt like was effective in that. Just communicating, letting people know that you see it. You don't necessarily have to be threatening right off the bat, but that alone will hopefully put them back in their place, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's great. Those are great tactics that you used. I wanted to ask you just really quickly. It's Canva's out. I love Canva. It makes me feel like I'm a designer, but I also know that there's limitations with Canva. And so when you were saying, I'm going to be putting something out there for other people who are not designers. So I'm looking forward to that, because I love things like Canva. It's easy. I don't have to feel like I'm breaking my bank every single time I need to get something. Plus I can do it on my own really quickly if it's already in there. And so what is your opinion on Canva?
Yeah, so a lot of designers hate Canva. To be honest with you, I don't use it all that often unless a client needs a template. So if they need social media templates or a PDF or something that they feel comfortable editing down the road, we will design in Canva. It's a great tool. It's a great tool if you're not a designer. I don't have any beef with it. I will caution people that you don't own anything that you make on Canva. So just know that, logos and things like that, you're not able to copyright or trademark if they're made on Canva. So just be careful with what you're creating in that, right? I do think from a non-designer perspective, this course that I envision rolling out one day is going to talk a lot about design principles, because while Canva is great and they have a lot of really helpful templates, if you're ever working on something custom, it can be difficult to know how much negative space you need around your text, or how far apart you should space your letters, or, little things like that. And so this eventual product I want to create will basically be walking through those basic design principles so that anybody can take them and apply them on Canva or whatever design platform they're using.
Oh, that's fantastic. And of course, you're an expert. Canva just makes us feel like an expert, but we're not.
It's a great tool. It really is. I mean, where would we be without it? Think of all the...
Seriously.
It's so hard.
It was such a game changer, I think, for non-designers.
Yes.
But before we hop off, I always like to ask a few questions. What is some of your favorite biz tools or resources that you use?
Oh gosh, from a design standpoint or just in general?
General design, whatever. I think general, like.
Okay. Yeah. So I use HoneyBook every day. HoneyBook is my CRM system where I send invoices and contracts, all the things. I would die without it. So that's my number one business tool. We also use Asana internally to communicate and assign tasks to one another within my own team. I actually don't use that with clients. I found that it can be a little overwhelming to onboard clients there and communicate there. So I don't use it with clients. As far as design tools, obviously love the Adobe suite. Creative Market is great if you're looking for basic Canva templates and stuff like that. You can find a lot of good stuff on there. And then there's actually a Chrome extension that I use all the time. It's called What Font. So basically, if you add this extension to your computer and you're on a website and you see a font that you really like, you can click that icon and it'll tell you what the font is.
That is
from
so
a
cool.
design, yeah. So from a design standpoint, that's always just fun for me to look at.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And if somebody wants to contact you, get a hold of you, get onto the Kindly Kit, how do they do that? Where can they reach you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm always posting my latest work and things like that over there. And then my website is kindlybykelsea.com. You can find a link to the Kindly Kit if you're a designer. And again, that's just a kit walking you through all of our templates and everything that we use in our client process. Super robust, super informative, meant to be a simple resource for you to implement right away. But those are where you can find me.
Yay. Well, everything's going to be in the show notes. So they're going to have easy access to you. And again, I loved having you here. I love chatting with you. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It was such a joy. I hope it was helpful for people. And you're just doing amazing things with this podcast. And I'm an honor to be a guest.